We are told several places in Scripture to guard our thoughts. But Jesus takes it one step further, speaking specifically about what we would call fantasies. In Matthew chapter 5, he says, if you hate your brother, you're a murderer. And a few verses later, he says, if you look upon a man or a woman with lust in your heart, you've already committed adultery with him or her. Wow, that's pretty serious. But it makes sense from a behavioral neuroscience perspective. Let me tell you why. When we engage in those kind of fantasies, when we're angry at somebody and we imagine just telling them off or cursing them out or maybe even, slapping them across the face or worse, our brain fires in that exact pattern as if we were telling them off or punching them in the face or slapping them. The same way with lust. When we engage in those fantasies, our brains fire in sync as if we're actually engaging those behaviors. And that has all kinds of ramifications. But on the simplest level, here is what happens. When we engage in those fantasies feel good. That's why we spend time in our heads thinking through, oh, I'm going to tell him this, or I wish I could tell him that, or I wish this person would maybe just give me a little kiss on the cheek. When we engage in those fantasies, it feels good. So we get a dopaminergic reward in addition to whatever the neural firing pattern is associated with that behavior we're fantasizing. So we get this little bit of dopamine, and the dopamine makes us feel good for having that fantasy. It's why we keep repeating the fantasies. But dopamine does a couple specific things here. One, it activates that reward circuitry. And we say, yeah, we like that. And that works in the memory and learning centers of the brain. But dopamine is also responsible for the reinforcement circuitry, meaning we are reinforcing those thought patterns and they become neural habits as a result. So by engaging in fantasy, we are qualitatively changing those firing patterns of our brain towards behaviors that are, in the example of hate and murder, engaging in mental behaviors that are much more violent or aggressive than we've called to be as believers. In the case of lust, we are engaging in mental habits that will take us down a completely different road, a different path that will set us up for other problems in the future. Might make us prone to have an affair or get involved with somebody with whom we shouldn't. We tend to think our private thought life is private and it's not hurting anybody. But you are doing damage to your own brain by engaging in these behaviors. That's why Jesus says, love your enemies. This is why we are told so many times to keep your thoughts pure.